since it's a kind of gathering audience for the morning, can I ask how many of you are familiar with the graphic form at all as books? Oh, okay. I won't ask the next question so that we don't have to tell Appupen the truth in case you haven't read him at all. But in case you have read him, can we see? Okay. So some of you are very familiar, and some of you are probably strangers to graphic fiction or non-fiction for that matter. I think, therefore, maybe it's a good idea for us to talk about the form first and then go on to talk about Appupen's own work. Appupen is not Appupen. Appupen is George Martin in his other life, where he does other things which are not to do with graphic forms and writing. He is someone who also creates commercial art and has been a drummer in a band. And I read an article once where they said he was the quintessential backbencher. And you might expect that he would do all these things, such as be part of a boy band and do all the other things that guys on the backbench do.
Not a boy band.
I don't know, whatever they said in that interview. And then he evolved into this creature of sophisticated art and graphic fiction and so on. So I think it'd be fun to hear a little bit about how the backbencher became the artist.
No, I was a good student. I was not like a. Yeah.
Okay.
The teachers trusted me and all, you know. But yeah, generally there's this thing that you have to go do economics and do an MBA or something when you get out, and are a decent student from Kerala. So I went after that for a short while until I realized I'm doing the same thing that I did in school. Like there was nothing, and yeah, I discovered painting and art by then. So it became. Also, I needed to earn my own money at the time, so it became about what can get you the money soon. And somehow the other painting pubs and doing tattoos and all, that was how the money was coming in. So I turned to art like that.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. You made tattoos for a living.
Yeah.
Okay, so give us something more about this life as a tattoo artist.
The tattoo artist. There's a story coming out. There's a story in a book that I'm doing about the tattoo episode, but it was really funny. It was the only tattoo place in Bombay at the time.
I'm going to interrupt. Can you hear at the back?
Can you hear? Okay. Yeah. It's okay. So there was this doctor who used to do tattoos, but the thing is, he was a shrink, and it was his parlor that where the bed changed into the tattoo bed after 2:00. So I finished college and I ran over and I do tattoos with him. His hands were shivering by the time, very. So he needed somebody to handle the tattoo part slowly. I started doing drawings for people who wanted tattoos because we used to take things from those tattoo magazines. So everyone will end up having the same tattoos. So the idea of customized tattoos came with my input to
So when are we talking about? Which year?
97, 98.
Okay.
Yeah. It was my first year in college during that time. So yeah, so I started doing tattoos and I did a lot, but I didn't trust it. It's dependent on the skin also. So sometimes your best work doesn't heal that way. And I felt that the tattoo artists also, they take a photo as soon as they wipe off the blood and it looks really cool and all. But 2-3 weeks later when they come, it doesn't look that crisp, you know. So I was like, okay, this is not what I did exactly, but now I'm just going to stand and pretend like this is what I wanted. And that happens with most Indian skin tattoos for sure.
Why is that? What is the Indian skin?
We haven't figured it out, but the colors stay a lot more solid on fair skin. Even in Malayalam, we say pachagutva. So it's actually black that you do, but it turns green over time. We have it for all our grandfather and all. We'll have one cross there. Yeah. It turns green, so even I have one which turned like it's spread and it's ugly and it's like.
Okay, we won't ask to see it then. Okay. Yeah. So how long did you do this?
Till I got out of college. So I got an advertising job by then. So I thought, yeah, that's when I left. It didn't seem like 100% thing for me. There was something beyond what I could do. You know, I'm relying on some kind of chance there. So I didn't. There was one particular tattoo that I really regretted having done.
What?
And there was this girl's like dolphin jumping out like that. And
Okay.
you have to like really take care of the tattoo, and she didn't. Her panty line must have been running on it or something, so the scab falls off, and then it had spread a bit. And she was a beautiful girl, and then I didn't want to be responsible for something like that. I was like, no, okay, this is it. I'm not doing this anymore. She seemed okay with it, like because it's a dolphin jumping out, and everyone's already very happy about it, I suppose. But I don't want to be responsible for something like that.
I've known Appupen for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
I've never heard all of this. So forgive me, this is a very unplanned conversation. We meant to talk about books.
Yeah, I
but,
know. I'm very surprised that she took off on the tattoo thing. Like, like it's an upcoming book. Like,
So next book we'll commission is The Tattoo Artist.
not next, but
The one
yeah,
after.
yeah.
Okay. So tell us about your work as a graphic novelist. And let's move to Moonward. What happened? How did it happen? Why did you move to that at all?
Like all this tattoo stuff, like was not working out, and advertising definitely I didn't want that to work out either. So I know that I wanted to tell stories, but if I try to tell stories with animation or film in Bombay, it requires a lot more of a budget and a lot more buy-in from a lot of people, which also comes with the baggage that you have to deliver something that people want to sell or is sellable. So if I have to do my own ideas as stories, I figure there's no way I can make it into any of these things without bending in to like add a song or something like that in it, right? Or if you go with a pitch for animation, anybody will ask you, is it something like Chota Beam? Then they're like happy to do it, But if you want to come up with your own idea, you won't get funding like that out of the blue. So I wanted to put down the stories first. I think the content is what matters as a creator. The style I can always build up, and if somebody has the money, I can hire like the best animators and make it move like a dream. But I need to have the content. So it was an effort to see if there is content in the work and whether people want to read it. So I started putting up stuff online for free on a website. There were no like social media things at the time, so you have to like email people and tell them, hey, there's this website www. Go and check it out. So Blaft, the first publishers from Chennai, they found me like that, and that became sort of validation for what I was trying to do. So suddenly somebody wants to publish you, which means okay, maybe take you seriously as a author. Such was the thought, and so naive I was at the time.
I didn't say anything there. And then Moonward. But tell us a little bit about Hala Hala. So, for those of you who are not familiar with Appupen's work, Hala Hala is the world that his characters inhabit in these books. And they are subtitled, therefore, variously stories or legends or other stories from Hala Hala. So, that world now has grown from that first book, which was Moonward, through Asperus and the Legends of Hala Hala, then Asperus, and then finally The Snake and the Lotus, which has just come out this year in February. And these are worlds that people have variously described as dystopian and dark and comic and beautiful at the same time. So they're deeply multi-layered. They tell us stories about a world that doesn't exist in our time, but is always a world that is waiting either at the back of your own mind or perhaps in another parallel universe or in another future. But they pick up on the darkness of a lot of the things that are happening around us now to tell us about a world that is really entirely in his imagination. So the two things come together as very powerful narratives of our time, which are mostly silent, because that's the other thing Appupen does, is a lot of his comics have no words in them, except the title page. They are just images, and you have to learn to read the images to know the story, which is a difficult thing for a lot of people. So tell us about that as well, about the narration and the response.
I try to make it really difficult for people to read the work, and so that it doesn't get popular, things like that. I stay indie, and that's the way I sell myself. But the world itself, we have a lot of fantasy worlds now, and there's always this mountain range and a dragon and like trolls and things like that. Trolls we still have even now,
In
but
real
like
life.
yeah, but the rest of the things, I don't want to make a fantasy world like that. So we're looking at a world where the fantasy is that the world changes to suit the story. So again, the story I want to like project as the hero. So if I'm there is no one image of Hala Hala as such, but like what she said, it's that darkness and that something else and something else and something else. That is what I hope will stay consistent through many books, and the ideas behind it. That should say that it's coming from the same world, or like, what I can imagine, rather than the look of it or one style that dominates, and it will sort of bracket it into one zone, and that's not what you want a fantasy world to be weighed down with. So I've tried to make stories also look different in each book, in each story, just to suit that tone of the story. So sometimes it's a funny story in like Legends of Hala Hala, where you just want to like make a point about like love in the Hala Hala world. So there the style becomes very light. Here in Snake and the Lotus, I want you to feel that world, the fantasy over there, very strongly. So it's like.
Will you tell them a little bit about the plot of Snake and the Lotus?
Ooh, we had a tough time like putting it down on paper, but basically, it could be said slightly in the future. There is this, I don't know for what reason, but lotus-shaped world, city, and humans are living in these outposts in the wasteland, and this one produces all the food. So people drink lotus milk made from artificial lotus, and then that's all they have to like survive on. So it's a kind of a dystopian, totalitarian setting I'm trying to create. But you, as science fiction readers, viewers, we've seen a lot of stuff happening. So I want to make it in a zone which is still has the potential to go into a new territory. So I know that there is something in there which is sort of new, but we have to set the ground to get that out. So that is what happened with Snake and the Lotus. Of course, there is a character who comes and fights against this setup, but we don't really know who he is. That was the point of that first book also, to keep it away. And also my idea of hero is always like that. I don't like the superhero.
So tell us a little bit about your superheroes. We will lead up to his ultimate superhero, who is now all the rage, who is called Rashtraman. And Rashtraman does interesting things with today's times.
It's all the rage, and if you don't know Rashtraman, then like you're really missing out on something.
Yes, you should be reading him every day.
It's all the
Absolutely.
rage. Like soon after Chota Beam comes Rashtraman. So,
but tell us seriously, the superhero is something that everyone is familiar with as a concept. Some of you have seen the Superman kind of superhero. In India, we've had our own versions, I suppose, but no one has really taken over the imagination of the Indian reader in the way that the West has created its superheroes. What is it? I mean, do we not respond to heroes in the same way? Do we not need them in the same way?
Yeah, like Ambedkar said, we come from the Bhakti angle. So, I think we have enough of it here. In the West, that was needed to create that mythology, like how they use the superheroes now, or Captain America, or all these guys who stand for certain things. We already have like flags and deities that stand or can be made to stand for such things. So if you see like our superhero comics also tried to take on that and flopped like horribly. Like they tried to do retellings of like superhero versions of Ramayana and Mahabharata, which is I think is kind of like diluting, and it should not be done. I don't know, but let's go to the hero angle. Like also there is some kind of thing in me where always wants to take pot shots at that mainstream idea, at like that strong mainstream culture that is coming. I like spoofing and satire a lot. So I think that's a nice way to make a point. And in the superhero thing that is happening now, you see like suddenly everybody knows who Black Widow or all these people are. Like you go to Kerala and you tell them everybody knows all the superheroes. That was not the case when I was growing up. You couldn't even find a comic Anyway, I don't know if you can still like find a comic, but they all know from the movies and all who they are. So the idea of the superhero is getting really strong, and so are a few ideas in our politics, and there are strong parallels. And the agenda being driven on the populace is what the superhero also kind of like stands in his uniform and okays. So here is a superhero called Rashtraman who has a definite agenda and he's going with it, and he very brazen, very open about it, and that's what he stands for. And people laud it, people cheer it. There's this thing when I made a comic on. I do political cartoons, so there is a cartoon where Modi is dressed up like a Robocop, and there are these guns and all pointing, and he says, "Well, the person who did not stand up for the national anthem, please stand up. We know who you are, so you're being watched also." And that got a lot more traction than viewership than we usually get on our page. So I was wondering what happened, and then I figured that it's been shared by all the pages that we are kind of scared of. And, that is the image that you like for your hero, for your leader. That is the kind of control that you are in a way promoting.
So it doesn't matter exactly what is being said as long as the projection is of a strong authoritarian.
Yeah, and if you are not the person who stood up for the national anthem, yes, you should stand up or get shot or something, right? So that is the agenda. So it started I started getting lost about where to draw the line for satire and how to use it also, because a lot of people are sharing it and it wasn't intended that way. They don't even see the humor in it. It's just become, what if it became like that, the Angry Hanuman or something, and it comes on the back of every car, I'll probably have to run away or hide, stop.
But he was telling me about a recent one they did on the Congress. Are you up to acting the thing out, the hand?
Oh, that was after this Sabrimala thing. I just thought people need to make a stand somewhere. So the Congress hand is like that, and then it's slowly cracking and all the fingers go down, and it just becomes one finger with this vulture hovering around on top.
So Appupen is obviously, as any, I think, sane person in this time should be, deeply disturbed every time he sees the news and responds to it in his own way as art or satire or whatever. And then there's the other side to him, which is creating these worlds in the books, which are dreamy fantasies of dystopia, but still it's where the art, as he says, is taking him. So there's one place where the art goes, and there's another place where the direct confrontation with political conversations goes. Is that even a sensible way to live, to have two sides to you all the time?
It's not sensible because both sides don't make any money. So you need something else to make the money to make both these sides go on. It's not very sensible or sustainable, and I think that's also why we have very few people making comics or seriously investing themselves in the scene like that. But the idea is also this question of, as an artist, what do you want to do? Where do you want to take the art? And there is a lot of discipline and a lot of things you have to put yourself through to come out with some work. That is where you wanted to go, and then suddenly you see that you can't keep quiet on certain things or pretend it's not happening, because it's your freedom that is going to be compromised in that thing. So it's only when that started taking over my space that I started reacting, honestly. Before that, I wasn't really thinking of going after or doing a lot of political work. I was pretty much onto the brands because I came from the advertising background, and there we know how we sell brands. So I was thinking more on those lines. But now, soon enough, the nexus became too close and too strong. And you know that it doesn't happen with just one agenda. Everybody's tied up together. And slowly I think it just falls into it if you're thinking about what you're addressing. I don't also want to get stuck repeating the same message all my life, which is a danger of going in the political cartoon zone. I can be 90 years old and still saying that cow is okay or not okay.
Not okay.
Yeah, so you can just get caught in these things, and that is happening to a lot of thinking minds now, I think, where you're sent off on these wrong or loops where you get stuck. So we can't take it forward anymore. That also I see is a danger to the art, and to as an artist when you're trying to push the work. That is an unnecessary loop over there, and we might not even get out of the loop in a lifetime. So
He creates dystopias, so he's going to be very pessimistic about the world, I suspect. But can I break in to ask if there are any questions that you would like to ask Appupen?
or Karthika.
Just about, yes. Is there a mic that can go around? Is there an organizer listening? Hello?
Hey guys, there a mic?
Is mic? Yeah, you can start by shouting.
Thank you. And I'm speaking as someone who has never heard your work, but I've heard about you a lot in various circles. So I was really interested in when I learned that you don't or avoid using words to stay indie, like you say, right? As in keep out the crowds per se. But I was just wondering, is that something which has always been on your mind, or just yeah, I mean, have you been a person who has been into the written word? Because I am personally on the writing front. I love words, and I've read a few graphic novels, but I believe that, say for example, Calvin and Hobbes, right? So it does this right mix of really good visual art and really good choice of words. So do you think there's a scope for that as well?
No, definitely. I think that's how comics have been accepted also. I think very visually, and I know when I think of a story, I put it down in a very visual format. And if I can create the whole thing with just visuals itself, I somewhere thought that it can cut that barrier of language and reach out to anybody kind of thing. I'm still honing that. The next book is also going to be completely silent, but with stories that can be more easier to read, I think. And also with just the images, what you can bring out, like how sensitive you can be. It's like if you like music without lyrics, there is a different trip to it.
It's a different challenge.
Yeah. So I think of it like that.
Okay, thank you.
People are just crowding you. Yeah, you become a fan.
Does anyone else have a question?
Hey, I'm Matai Fen.
Hi.
I was just wondering, have you even explored some of these motion techniques that you do with these things? Since you're visual and you like drawing, I thought perhaps putting some movement would probably also add to the value.
Definitely, it'll add to the value. I'm collecting some ideas which may add value to the whole setup, but we need a lot of funds and a lot of people to make that motion happen. And I'd rather do what I do, create stories, and not get lost in the technical aspects of it. If there's funds, we can always do it. I've studied some animation. I know what it takes roughly. So it's open, but I think I want to do the idea part more,
If you go on to just Google Appupen's new book, Snake and the Lotus, you'll find a little animated series of trailers, and you can see how that work on the page completely transforms when it becomes animation. Each one, I think, has a different response that it creates from the reader or the viewer, but they work beautifully. One moves into the other very easily.
It's just motion. It's not really animation there, but it's just to show the possibility that it can be done, with a lot of money. Yeah. So
you will notice money is a very important part of this conversation that I'm not talking about at all. Yes, question there.
Hi, Appupen. My name is Girish, and I absolutely love the idea that we discussed just now. I have a quick question and a follow-up question on that. The yes and no question is, do you use, I have not read any of your work so far, by the way. Do you use any explicit words in your writing?
Not really.
No.
Okay.
So the
you mean like Lotus and things like that?
So the follow-up question is, what are the challenges that you face to actually express your ideas without using any of the words that you're so tempted to use in writing?
No, you can tell a story without words. It depends on what you choose to tell. So if I have to introduce something absolutely new to you, which you don't have any reference for, then I need words. I can't show it to you with just pictures and expect you to get that. Example, some new invention or something like that. I probably have to put words. But if I choose the kind of stories that I have now, happen to be things that will draw from you, will pull out from your experience, so you can tell the story to yourself. And what Karthika tells herself may be slightly different, but what I provide with the visuals are the guides to see that you don't fall off that general story trend and that you get that ending. So within that, I like it that way. I wasn't planning to put challenges on myself. I was actually just taking the easy way out for myself, which is the visuals.